Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, unfortunately, as many of you are aware, earlier this week, we again had another mass shooting in the United States, this time in the subway system in Brooklyn, New York. Now, the media certainly is being caught up on certain aspects of the story and ignoring other aspects, and the public themselves is guilty of the same thing, being spun up on certain aspects while ignoring others. But I think one thing we're all really guilty of is ignoring one very important aspect that I want to bring to your attention today. So today we're going to spend a few minutes to talk about the real issue with the Brooklyn subway shooting. Okay, before we get rolling, you guys know the drill. If you like this video, go ahead and click that like button. If you want to stay up to date on issues related to your Second Amendment rights, go ahead and click the subscribe button. Click the little bell logo if you want to be notified when we post new videos. And most importantly, let's keep the comments and discussions coming. That's how we're going to make sure we're getting our videos out to more lawful and responsible gun owners like yourself. Okay, more sad news to report. Dateline Tuesday, 62-year-old Frank James of Ohio got on board a northbound subway train headed into Manhattan in the Brooklyn area sometime while on the train, and very conveniently in between one of the longest distances between two stops, as you can see here. Mr. James then deployed several smoke grenades, and once the car filled with smoke, pulled his Glock 17 out and began indiscriminately shooting individuals in the subway car. Of course, they had nowhere to go. They had to wait until they got to the 36th Street station. And as we know, when we ever are involved in a mass shooting, there's a three-part rule, which is run, hide, or fight, in that order. If you can run, get the hell out of there. If you can hide, if you can't run but you can hide, please hide. If you can do neither, it is time to fight. Well, in a situation in an enclosed subway car that is not stopping until it gets to the next station, that is filled with smoke, in which people are probably trampling all over, you can imagine the pandemonium. And Mr. James was, in fact, able to wound 10 people. Now, he did not kill any of them, a small miracle in of itself, but well over 20 people ultimately ended up being wounded in some fashion, either by gunfire, shrapnel, or simply just being trampled over by other people. A 24-hour manhunt. Ultimately, they found Mr. James. He is now in custody, and of course, his motivations are being scrutinized by some in the media who believe it's important, myself included, and others media outlets are completely ignoring it. Now, that is not the issue that we want to talk about today. The issue I want to talk about is what happened to all of those poor people in that subway car and what the state of New York could very easily have done to prevent this, and what I am very hopeful the United States Supreme Court is about to correct. There is an old adage that the only way to truly stop a bad person with a gun is to ensure that you have a good person there with a gun. And the problem for the state of New York, as it is for many other states in this country, is that the ability to legally possess a firearm in public, the ability to conceal carry a firearm for your protection and the protection of all other lawful citizens in your presence, well, that's almost about as plausible as throwing rocks at the moon. You see, New York, along with several other states in the United States, are what we call may-issue states. What is a may-issue state? A may-issue state says in order to get a concealed carry license, not only must you meet all of the qualifications, but you must also provide us with a real good reason why you need this license, and even then, we may issue it. Well, if you want to get an idea of just what it's like to live in a may-issue state, just how oppressive it can be, why don't we just go take a look at New York State's own website about obtaining a concealed carry license. Now, as of April 14th, this is what New York State is telling us. A firearms license is a state license. However, it is issued under the authority of county licensing officers. An applicant must decide what type of license will be sought. The most common types of firearm licenses are carry concealed, possess on premises. That's right, a license to possess a firearm in your own home. And wait, there's more. Possess carry during employment. How much does it cost? Well, it varies by county. How long will the process take? You should expect it to take a minimum of 4 months from the time of the application until a license is either granted or denied. Now, for those of us living in shall-issue states, hang on, because it gets worse than that, because here's the eligibility requirements. To be eligible for a firearms license, you must be a New York State resident. must be 21 years old, have no prior felony or serious offense convictions, be of good moral character. And I'm not really certain what determines good moral character, especially if New York State government is the one that's judging it. But wait, there's more, including have a legally recognized reason for wanting to possess or carry a firearm, and finally, be ready to open the business for which the license is being applied. And I want to go back to the second to last term, because this is the big rub for may issue states. And this is what gives the state governments, local governments, county issuing authorities the ability to administer this in such an arbitrary and capricious fashion. Because in order to get a license to conceal in the state of New York, one must demonstrate a legally recognized reason for wanting to possess or carry a firearm. And listen, the state of New York is not alone in this. There are several other states around the nation that require these extreme measures, these almost burden of proof for you to show me why you need a gun. And in many ways, if you're able to show them why you need one, you are the person actually most likely to have to use it. But states other than New York that also require this include California, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Rhode Island. Now, here's the big difference between these may issue states and a shall issue state, of which Washington is. And although it is rare that I brag about Washington gun laws, I do believe that Washington has a very good legal system in place to establish and to issue concealed carry licenses. Under RCW 9.41.070, an applicant, and that is a person who applies for a concealed pistol license in Washington State to their local police department, that is the department of the jurisdiction in which they reside, shall issue that individual a license within 30 days. And essentially what the burden of proof is the burden of proof is placed upon government to disprove your eligibility to possess a firearm. If the state of Washington cannot disprove your eligibility to possess a firearm, that is, they can't find a record of a felony conviction, they can't find a record of a DV conviction, they can't find a record of some type of mental health ailment or commitment that would preclude you, they can't find any current or pre-existing harassment orders, anti-harassment orders, protection orders, any of the things that can disqualify us from possessing a firearm. If the state of Washington cannot find any of those, they shall issue you the license. And many, if not all other shall issue states operate on that. And even for under the same statute, 941.070, out-of-state residents are entitled to the same privilege here in Washington State, the only difference being that the state of Washington has up to 90 days to issue you an out-of-state concealed carry if you reside out of the state of Washington. So the reality of the matter is this, is that when you are in shall issue states, the likelihood that a concealed carrier, that a lawful and responsible gun owner could be nearby is significantly greater than it is in places like New York and California, two of the most popular and I might point out crime-ridden states in the entire country. You see, oftentimes those who cry foul anytime there are serious gun regulations always point out that criminals don't follow gun regulations. Well, guess what? Mr. James is a classic example. Even though he's from Ohio, he rented a van in Pennsylvania, came to New York, possessed a firearm on a subway concealed in a bag. Now, I'm pretty certain that Mr. James did not jump through all of New York State's hoops in order to obtain that license to possess the firearm. And even if he had gone through the hoops to actually apply for it, do we really think the state of New York would have given it to him? You see, this is the exact issue right now that's before the United States Supreme Court in New York Pistol and Rifle Association v. Bruin. The plaintiffs in that case applied for concealed pistol licenses and actually had what they believed were otherwise valid reasons to do so. But the government chose, for whatever reason, and they didn't really have to state, that the reasons were not good enough and therefore they were not granted the license. Essentially, what the state of New York and the local governments are allowed to do is to determine whether or not you truly have good reasons to exercise what is otherwise a constitutionally guaranteed right. So the issue to be talked about anytime there is one of these incidents in a city like New York City, in a state like California, in a state like New Jersey, the question is would that person have even picked that target if they were in a shall issue state rather than a may issue state? We know when we're walking into cities such as New York or into states such as California or any of these other jurisdictions that we talked about, that the likelihood that there is a lawful and responsible gun owner willing to defend himself and anyone else in his presence is incredibly remote. In fact, the likelihood of any other lawful person possessing a firearm in the near proximity is almost nil. The only firearms that are likely possessed in near proximity are those which are also illegally possessed. So, to the state of New York, some of this blood is on your hands too. Because if you were a shall-issue state, if you allowed your citizens to exercise their constitutionally guaranteed but God-given right of self-defense, perhaps somebody may have been able to stop Mr. James before he wounded so many. I hope that the Supreme Court rights this wrong. Listen, you may have more questions about this issue or anything else related to your Second Amendment rights, and if you do, don't ever hesitate to contact us at WashingtonGunLaw.com. Or, of course, you can call us directly at 425-765-0487. Now, let's remember, part of being a lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here at Washington Gun Law, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching. Stay safe. Hey everyone, William here with Washington Gun Law. First of all, I want to thank all of you. We just recently passed 32,000 subscribers, so thank you to all you lawful and responsible gun owners. Now, for those of you who geek out here on the channel all the time, you know that yours truly here absolutely screwed up our last live session, which was scheduled for April 4th, but this guy here got involved and got it all screwed up. So I promised you a new one, and yes, we are going to do a new one. In fact, it's coming up this Monday, April 18th at 7 p.m. right here on YouTube. That's, once again, Monday, April 18th, 7 p.m. I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about from the publication of the new federal regulations as it relates to firearms, frames, receivers, all of that stuff. Talking about 80% lowers, talking about all the crazy stuff we're doing out here in Washington, all the crazy stuff that the ATF is doing, and God only knows what else. So join us live, 7 p.m., Monday, April 18th. Until then, stay safe.